Hi, everybody, and welcome to the World View. This is the World View. I'm Chris Greco, your host for the next 30 minutes. We'll be talking from a world perspective, not from a U.S. perspective, but from a U.S. impact. How are things that are happening in the world impacting the United States and the citizens of this country? We're going to stay away from the stories like capturing a serial killer or a prisoner that escaped. These are major stories, or indictment of a former president. These are major stories of the United States, major stories of the United States. No, not what's happening in the world, but what's happening in our little piece of the world, our the third highest population in the world, the nation with the third highest population in the world. We're going to be talking about India, specifically about India, because there's a lot of things that are happening in the world that have to do with India. The G20, Bastille Day, again, India is part of that. And then the Hodeida Coast oil tanker crisis. So those are the stories we're going to be talking about today that were barely touched upon, if touched upon at all, by the United States media. And I'm telling you right now that this that the BBC and Haystack News, go to the BBC, get the BBC. If you're on Roku, you can get BBC News. If you're on a mobile app, go to BBC mobile app, get it on your phone. It's so much better of a news giving organization than anything you'll see in the United States. Anything. France News, France 24, DW News. There's tons of news agencies out. Al Jazeera, tons of news agencies out there. If you don't take advantage of that, shame on you. Shame on you as a United States citizen, because you need to be better informed. You need to understand what's going on in the world. You need to understand how we impact in that world. And you need to understand how sometimes you hear H-E-R-E, in this country about things that just are not altogether factually correct. You need to go out there and see this data, see these things for yourself by means of news agencies that actually purport, and their methodology is about journalism, not about sensationalism, not about if it bleeds, it leads, but literally about what's happening right now within countries and outside of countries that impact the United States. You want me to get off my soapbox? Then I don't even, something, let me tell you right now, I don't care if you watch the Worldview. I really don't. But if this little area, this little monologue in the beginning somehow gets you to open your eyes and to see the international news area and to go out and see different pieces of news, ABC and NBC and CBS and Fox do not in any way, shape, or form. I don't care what you see about these, great and glorious news shows. They do not in any way, shape, or form take into consideration the climate. I'm not talking about climate like climate change. I'm talking about climate like cultural climate within and without the United States, about what it is with the world. And what's happening is because those news agencies are not exposing people to international news. Basically, what's happening is that they are making us dumb. They are sitting back thinking that nothing exists other than some stabbings or some shootings or some local political crud that has nothing to do with what's going on in the world. And all of a sudden, you sit back and you say, are you for climate change? Oh yeah, I'm for climate change. Really? Because Europe's not. If you take a look at the last survey, and I've done this on a worldview, they're all for climate change, but they don't want to change their personal habits. So what does it say about climate change aspects? So you're sitting back, and I just heard from a friend of mine, and this was interesting conversation about how people came back from France, and they said after they got back from France, they never realized how nice it was to be in the United States until they visited Paris and got back from Paris and arrived in the United States. People are more than happy to chastise this country for all of its faults, all of its problems, all of its situational analysis about things that are happening. And I mean, this stuff is like, oh, there's a shooting here. Oh, cops have shot this person here. Oh, cops did this, did that, blah blah. He goes on and on. Reparations, all these different things. You need to go over to another country. Pick a country. Pick one. Go there. Stay there. Stay there. And I'm not talking like a couple of week of vacation. I'm talking about years. Stay there 1 or 2 years. See how you like it. See, what are the things there that you sit back and you go, geez, in the United States, we don't do this. In the United States, we have this. In the United States, we have that. Think about how soon it takes for you to say things like this. And then wonder, wow, the United States really isn't all that bad. No, it's not, folks. The United States is not that bad. And let me tell you something, if anybody's making it worse, it's the spending. The spending aspect that the government is doing, it's making it much, much worse. And these other countries are laughing at us. They're laughing at us. They're sitting back saying, hey, the United States, yeah, that's great. I mean, we are patsies for a lot of situations that are happening in the world, and we just run right along with it. Perfect example, and one that I was not going to cover today, but I will cover today, and that is John Kerry's John John Kerry. What a joke, John Kerry. You visit to China, right? Now, let's go. Let's talk about this for a second. This guy is the climate czar, right? So John Kerry visits China, right? Hat in hand to China. Why does he do this? Well, China is the number one polluter in the world, right? Number one polluter in the world. You can look it up. Carbon dioxide, they are number one. Who's number two? We are number two by half of what China is doing. Yes, we're number two by half. We'd have to increase our output of carbon dioxide 100% more to get to where China is right now. And he went over there, hat in hand, talking to them about climate change and talking to them about how you need to stop the oil producing and the coal and all that stuff. China is nodding their heads very nicely, and in their heads they're saying screw you. They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop, and they're certainly not in any way, shape, or form going to. They're manufacturing, folks, manufacturing things. And when you manufacture areas, you get money. Their revenue is very, very important. Look at the bottom of whatever you're looking at right now. Look at the bottom of your PC. Look at the bottom of whatever you just bought from Amazon. Does it say made in China? That's manufacturing, folks. That's what it is. I admit that most of the stuff that you see in this room was made in China. So it's not something that we can sit back and say, oh, this is what we have. Now let's go back way long time ago about Syria. So John Kerry was Secretary of State when Syria was having a problem. They were having this civil war, which they still really have, and President Obama was president. And Kerry said, that Syria used chemical weapons against their own people, basically against the rebels. And his deal was, hey, look, you need to get rid of your chemical weapons by this date, or you're going to cross a red line. And President Obama said you're going to cross a red line. Then a media person, very smart media people. Sorry to be so sarcastic. There are some smart ones out there, some smart ones. But basically, the media person said, well, what type of thing would it take to not, have them cross that red line? And Kerry was befuddled. All of a sudden, he said, well, they'd have to get rid of all their chemical weapons by this date, and they would have to document that and prove it to us, and therefore we wouldn't cross the red line. President Obama grabbed that and said, perfect. That's what we're going to do. We're going to sit there and say, hey, you got to get rid of all your chemical weapons. And guess what? Miraculously, the leader of Syria said, oh, we got rid of them all. We got rid of them all. Look, none, there's none here. Where's your documentation? Oh, here's the documentation. Probably falsified, but hey, here you go. And we say, okay, that's fine. Hey, it didn't cross the red line, and that's it. So there's John Kerry going over to China. Failed in Syria, but he's going over to China, and he's going to sit back and say, "Yup, we are going to press the Chinese so that they stop doing petroleum and coal." And China is sitting back saying, "Yes, no, we're not going to do that." I mean, I mean, strategically thinking, folks. Look, get back to sense making, and sense making. Look it up. In sense making, what happens is you think strategically. The Chinese are thinking strategically. They are overpowering. They're the second highest economy in the world. They want to be number one economy in the world, and they are going to give up the fuel that fuels that economy, that fuels that manufacturing, for the sake of climate change. Forget it. They're not going to do it. Not going to do it. That's my prediction, based on history, based on experience, based on knowledge, based on talking with Chinese experts. They're not going to do it, folks. They are totalitarian government. They're going to do what the leader says to do. That's it. And they're going to go with that in that direction. And the individual is not going to be deposed. So basically, what's going to happen is John Kerry's going to walk away, actually fly away, because he's got his own private airplane, and he can fly away, and he's going to think, "Yep, here's what we did. Well, we got Blinken in there, and we had Yellen in there, we got Kerry in there. We're showing such good faith, in the Chinese, and the Chinese are laughing their butts off." Because what's basically happening is they're just coming in. It's like, this is hilarious. I mean, what's going to happen now? What China has, that it's interesting enough. So China has what's called the SCO, and we've talked about the SCO. I talk about it almost every single show. SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and people ignore this. I have not heard not one media outlet, not one, other than Haystack News or BBC, talk about the SCO. NBC hasn't talked about it. CBS hasn't talked about it. ABC hasn't talked about it. Fox certainly hasn't talked about it. So nobody's talked about this. CNN, nobody's talked about the SCO. Nobody's covered it. Nobody's SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The country, I've said the countries before. I'm not going to go over it again. The countries include China. They include Russia. They include Turkey. They include India. And it's interesting because then you have BRICS. And again, BRICS has been covered by some outlets, not many. And BRICS has to do with Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And they're going to have a meeting in South Africa with those leaders. South African president already has said, Putin is welcome. He can come down there and do whatever he needs to do. Crazy, right? I mean, we're dealing with China and India. We're bringing over to the U.S. and we're just giving them the full, hey, the White House visit and whatever else. India is producing CO2 emissions, and they're producing more CO2 emissions because they found coal. So all of a sudden they're burning coal. Now, we sit back and we go, so India is this developing nation, and they're doing very well from the standpoint of manufacturing, and they're manufacturing. They're doing our drugs over there, and went along with China, which is really interesting. I mean, so they're producing things for us and for the country. Bangladesh. Look at Bangladesh, which is not India, but it's another country close to India. They're producing most of our textiles, most of our shirts, our pants, shorts, things like that, ties. So I mean, all these things are happening. So this is something we have to take into consideration, is that we're going over there to China. Look at us. We're just doing fantastic with China. But the bottom line is that India is really making big headway into the manufacturing world. They're dealing with Russia. They are absolutely exporting and importing to Russia. I mean, China is exporting and importing to Russia. South Africa exporting and importing to Russia. Brazil importing and exporting to Russia. I mean, all these countries, BRICS, and then we get into SCO, which I went in before. You have Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Turkish, Kazakhstan. You have other stands are part of that. Afghanistan is part of that, part of the SCO. Iran, Saudi Arabia. I mean, again, I've talked about Turkey, who's a member of NATO and wants to be a part of the EU as part of the SCO. I mean, and it's all part of China. It's Shanghai Cooperation Organization, folks. Shanghai. Where do you think that is? What do you think it is? Where do you think it is? You think it's in Guam? It's in freaking China. So there's Shanghai that is in charge of an entire organization that is made up of these countries, including India. So interestingly enough, now I made this prediction. I'm going to make it again. France is going to join the SCO. I'm telling you, France is going to join the SCO. I have a book out, or it's going to come out. It's going to say why we should not trust France. We should not do this. I mean, we're giving France is just, they're selling arms to different areas. I mean, they're selling arms to Taiwan. I mean, so it's a situation, and people say, oh, that's fine, but they do. France, they have some interesting situations. Let me give you one situation that's really interesting. So I'm going to go to the map for this because I think this is something that's you have to take a look at. So here's Mali, right? Here's Mali. It's in Africa. It's right here in Africa. Now a lot of people say, Chris, why are you bringing up Mali? You just brought up France. Who cares? Type of thing. France has a presence in Mali. France has a presence in Mali. So does the Wagner Group. They have the French Foreign Legion in Mali, but Wagner is in there also. In fact, Wagner is getting to the point where Mali wants France out, and they want Wagner in there. Wagner in there. They want the Wagner Group in there. So you say, well, so what? So what's about France? Whatever else. So here's what BBC, U.S. didn't cover this. U.S. has not covered this. BBC covered this. The domain, and we'll talk about domains in a second. But the domain for military, when we talk about things that are sent in the military, is what they call .mil, .mil, like USAF.mil, blah 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 at USAF.mil. I mean that it goes to Pentagon, whatever else. But that's the domain for mil. You can't just get a MIL. You have to actually prove that you're a military organization. So MIL. Somebody. Pentagon messed up, and instead of putting MIL, they put ML. So all the emails, that were supposed to go through .mil went to .ml. Gee, what's .ml? Where is ML? What's .ml? ML is Mali. That's right. .ml is Mali. So when you have the .mil instead of .mil, it went to .mil. It went to .mil. Now the thing is, there was sensitive information. There was medical records, generals, profiles, things. Think about .mil. All the things. I mean, even when I was in the military, we didn't have email like crazy, which was really actually a good thing. But there's all kinds. .mil is everywhere. From the standpoint now, everybody has a .mil, and they sent it to Mali. They sent it to Mali. I mean, I'm sorry, but there's no. I'm sorry, they don't have spell check, and they don't have spell check. When you're doing an email, it doesn't go to spell check. It just says, is it a valid domain? Is it a valid email address? Boom! They sent it. They sent it to Mali. Great, huh? Wagner groups in Mali. There's people that are, France and Mali. I mean, and Mali's not exactly one of our allies. It doesn't, they're okay, but they're not fantastic. So we have no idea. They're trying to track it down now as to what, where it went and all this kind of stuff. This is what we're dealing with. I'd say some adjectives right now, but I can't say them on the air. So that's it with that. So let's, okay. So enough of this, enough of the Mali thing. Because that does get me upset. So now let's go to Bastille Day. So Bastille Day, big deal, right? Bastille Day. For those of you that don't know what Bastille Day is, Bastille Day is when it was basically the French Revolution. But what happened is that they the French Revolution took the released the prisoners from the Bastille. So it was, the liberty, the French Revolution, equality for all, that type of thing. And so what did they have? Well, they had India there. They had India in France during Bastille Day. You know, oh look, I mean, that was their major guest for Bastille Day was India, Modi. Again, and not to labor the point, but I'm going to labor the point. India is part of BRICS. India is part of SCO. France is courting India. What does that say to me? It says to me that they want India to say some good words to China and maybe join the SCO or maybe join BRICS, you know? So it's the situation where France is looking for more uh, alliances outside of the European alliances. It's not that they don't want European alliances, but they realize, yeah, that's nice, and but we want to be like the head of everything. We want to set the path. We want to pave the roads to where we want to go. So Bastille Day, boom, there's your chance. And they were in Paris, and so Modi was brought into France. Paris, everybody loved him. Life was good. I mean, it really turned out well. So that's what happened at Bastille Day. So next thing we're going to have is when we talk about the G20. G20 meeting. Where's the next G20 meeting? Oh, let's see. Where is it? Let's see. Where is it? Let's see. It would be North Macedonia? No. Bulgaria? No. Let's see. It would be Lebanon? No. Oh, let's see. Saudi Arabia? No. Let's see. Where would it be? Oh, I know where it is. It's in India. Why? Because India is part of the G20. Many people in the United States don't even know what I'm talking about. They have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over right here, and we're going to go to the G20 brief. Here it is right here. You can get on G20 on the G20 website. So, I mean, look at the G20. 2023 India, they give a whole background brief. What do they give? The countries that are part of it. Let's see, it'd be Argentina, Australia, Brazil, which is part of the SCO, part of BRICS, Canada, China, SCO and BRICS, France, Germany, India, SCO and BRICS, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Republic of Korea, Mexico, Russia, part of BRICS and part of SCO, Saudi Arabia, part of SCO, South Africa, part of BRICS, Turkey, part of NATO, part of SCO, United Kingdom, and the United States. So this is what the G20 is made of, right? And the European Union. So the G20 members represent about 85% of the global GDP, 75% of global trade, all these different things. This is G20. And where it's going to be? India. Is India part of NATO? No, of course not. North Atlantic Treaty Organization is not part of NATO, right? But India is supposedly an ally of the United States. But they're trading with Russia. There are some sanctions in place, but they're still trading with Russia. So there's a lot of things that are happening that India is trying to play both sides, and they're actually doing it very, very successfully on that, because they have people. They're the most populous country in the world. Used to be China, now it's India. So they have a lot of people, a lot of opportunities for job growth, that type of thing. So it's really, really important that you understand, the India aspect. The last story we're going to do is going to be, it's going to take us somewhere else. It's going to take us over to here, the Red Sea, and a place called, and I'm sorry if I don't pronounce this correctly, Hodeidah. Now, Hodeidah is a port located right here on the Red Sea. So what is so important about that port? Well, let me tell you what's important about that port. The importance about Al Hodeidah is that there is a ship there called the Safer, Safer. And what the ship contains is about 1 billion barrels of oil, and it is rotting in the port. because of the mining done in the Red Sea. And uh, the individual who owns the ship wasn't maintaining it. So it was about to release this billion barrels of oil, which is about 50, just I'm estimating here, about 55 billion gallons of oil, right, is going to be released into the Red Sea. What would that do to the Red Sea? It would destroy the Red Sea, destroy it. There's a lot of habitat in this area, plus it's heavily traveled. Why is that? Because you go from here through the Gulf of Aden up through the Red Sea, and there you go. You're in the Med. Because this is in the Med, it's very important to understand this is a major shipping route. So what happened? What happened is that another ship has come in from another country, and they've been able to they're going to transfer that oil to the other ship. So crisis averted, right? Crisis averted. But this is where, again, it's not covered. It's not covered in the U.S., folks. It's kind of sad when you get down to that. So those are the stories I wanted to cover today, just to kind of give you an idea as to what's going on in the world and to understand a little bit more about what's going on in the world. And this is so very important from the standpoint of what's happening. I mean, they're going to talk about things like how hot it is in Italy, climate change, different aspects of that whole thing. But I'm going to tell you right now that the number one country that is spewing carbon dioxide into the air is right here, China. This is it, right? 10 million billion, whatever it is, of cubic feet of CO2. I mean, it's absolutely astronomical, the amount that is being thrust into the air. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and call it for this episode of Worldview. And I want to thank you very much for watching. And just understand one thing is that no matter what happens in the world, it's really much better if you have a worldview. Take care.